A Snapchat story has a group of people who have seen it doubles every minute. Doubles, I know, means multiply by 2. The table shows that there were 100 who saw the story at the beginning. How many people saw the story after 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, and 4? Enter this information into the table. Well, I know that 100 people saw beginning. Beginning is another word for initial. So I'm going to say that 100 is my initial value. So at 0 minutes, 100 people had seen it. If it's doubling every minute, I'm going to multiply by 2. So times 2 gives me 200, times 2 again gives me 400, times 2 again gives me 800, and times 2 again gives me 1600. What is the equation for this function? Y equals a times b to the x. Well, I know that a is my initial value, and b is my multiplier. Therefore, y equals my initial value, which was 100, because it's where x equals 0. And my multiplier, b, was 2, because we multiplied by 2 each time. So that would be our function. Part 3 says, sketch a graph that displays the total number of bacteria with respect to time. Label points on your graph. That should not say bacteria. That should say total number of viewers, right? Because we're talking about people who had seen the video. Typo. So I'm going to label my x and y axis first so I don't get confused. X is typically time. Therefore, y is going to be number of viewers. So we want to go up to 4. So here is 0. I'm going to, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to take the points that I've created in my graph, my table, and just put them on my graph. We're going up by hundreds in the y value, so I'm going to count by hundreds on my graph. So we'll say that this is 100, 200, 300, because that was our highest value. 1,000, 1,010, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,500, and 1,600. That's my maximum that I need to go to because that's our maximum value in our table. So at 0 minutes, there were 100 viewers, so I'll put a dot right there. Use a different color. At 1 minute, there were 200 viewers. At 2 minutes, there was 400 viewers. At 3 minutes, there were 800 viewers. And at 4 minutes, there were 1,600 viewers. So now I'm going to connect my points in a nice curve because exponential functions are curving. Because this is going up, this is an example of exponential growth. Just a reminder. And for the last part, these are kind of long notes. It says 6 hours into the Snapchat story, Snapchat took the story down and 90% of people lost access to the video. If 100 people initially saw the video, then how many people could see the video after it was taken down? So we need to figure out how many were left after 90%. A multi-step problem. So first I'm thinking, well, let's go back to our table. We got up to 4 minutes, right? We want to get to 6 minutes. So I'm going to use 4 and 1,600, and I'm going to create a new table to help me visualize. So we know at 4 minutes it was 1,600, and then Therefore, at 5 minutes to 6 minutes, because we want to know sorry, that should say minutes, not hours. At 6 minutes, how many people were there? So we're doubling, right? We're still doubling. So 1,600 times 2 gives me 3,200. And 3,200 times 2 gives me 6,400. Great, so we know that at 6 minutes, there were 6,400 people that had seen the story. Now, Snapchat takes the video down and removes 90% of those people. So, 90% of 6,400 people no longer can see it. How many people can still see it, which is 10%, right? Only 10% of the original can still see it. So I'm going to take 6,400 and I'm going to multiply by 10%. And again, I'm multiplying by 10% because 90% of people couldn't see it, which means only 10%. So I'm going to just figure out what is 10% of 6,400. So I know that I'd have to multiply, but I cannot multiply a percentage. It's going to give me a bigger number. We always have to convert a percentage into a decimal. To do that, we move the decimal twice, which gives us 0.1. So I'm going to take 0.1 and 6,400, and I'm going to multiply those. So, in my calculator, (64) times 0.1 equals 640. You'll notice that we could have just moved the decimal place once, right, to have figured that answer out. But it means that 640 people can still see the story. It was taken down.